we are kicking it off with our latest round of conference standing projections. And I mean, we're starting with the Power Four. We're now into the Power Four. We went over the Group of Five last week. We're starting it off with the Power Four, and this time we're going with the Atlantic Coastal Conference, the ACC. We are ready to rock and roll, and I am excited about doing this conference. We have 17 teams to discuss in our standings. 17 teams. This is what happens when you have conference realignment, ladies and gentlemen, in college football. And that's okay. That's okay. It's a lot of teams, but we're going to get through it. We're going to try to, get more into detail with the top teams on these standings. We're going to get more into detail. We're going to dive deep into this, and we're going to unpack everything in this episode. So keep it right here. Let's get it rolling with our conference standing projections for the ACC. Welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this wonderful and beautiful Tuesday afternoon, right here in Illinois, for us at least. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris, and whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, listening on Podbean or Apple, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, all you have to do and just share around with others and follow on there as well. X, Instagram, Facebook, just type in Pigskin Frenzy. Follow like the pages there. You're going to get episode updates. You're going to get news and highlights from across college and NFL football. You're going to get trivia questions on Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football question as well as all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, our website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. There you will find all the latest on Pigskin Frenzy. There's a Home and About Me page. Go and click on that as well and get to know more about me. You can also click the platforms page and go and click on one of the platforms I just mentioned in this intro right here, as well as our affiliation page. You can click on the Beard Club logo. That brings us to our partner with the Beard Club. Guys, if you want a great shave to make your facial hair look good, make yourself look good, significant others of your male counterpart, and males listening to this show, you're not going to be disappointed with the Beard Club. That's right, the Beard Club. You can get a lot of things, and I'm saying a lot of things, out of your facial hair and grooming needs, and they can be met with the Beard Club. There's a beard grooming kit, which is 15% off on the Beard Club's site. That is what I would recommend, and that's what I promote, especially when you have a stubble like mine, or a slight stubble beard like mine, I guess. But just when you have a beard in general, just groom your beard and make your facial hair look nice. There's also bath and body wash, beard and face wash, 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, loofahs, beard boar bristle brush, beard balm, beard wash, beard oil, you name it, all for the Beard Club, including razors as well. The Beard Club. Go to my website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Click on the affiliations page and click on the Beard Club logo. It will take you to the Beard Club site. You can also go to my link tree. You can go to the Instagram, Facebook, and X bios of the Pigskin Frenzy pages. Click on the link tree. Then there you will see the Beard Club link. Click on that link, and it will straight lead you to the Beard Club site. The Beard Club, it is what's best for your grooming and facial hair needs to be met. Thank you to our proud partners at the Beard Club. Now, college football day today, we're going to discuss our conference standing projections, where we discussed the Group of Five last week, and we talked about not really in individual conferences, but we talked about who could be the highest ranked Group of Five champion and lead into the 12th team spot into the college football playoff. We talked about that. This is our our introduction, our first round, technically, of actual conference standing projections. Yes, we're going to talk about conference championships. We're going to talk about the ACC title game, who's going to be the 1 and 2 seed in the ACC title game in December, and who can win that game early on. We did this last year. We're doing it now. 2024 conference standing projections. Let's get it rocking and rolling with the ACC. Let's kick it off with 17. There are 17 teams in this conference. Yes, conference realignment has affected the ACC as well. 4 teams. 14 teams. 3 teams have added themselves into the mix. That is SMU, the SMU Mustangs, coming over from the Group of 5, the American Conference, as well as 2 teams from the Pac-12, the Cal Golden Bears, and the Stanford Cardinal. 3 teams from the ACC, which to me, it's like, okay, you got a team from Texas in the Atlantic Coastal Conference, and you got two teams from the Pacific in the Atlantic Coastal Conference, in the Atlantic Coast Conference. So that's just kind of interesting, but nonetheless, they're all in. They need to have a conference to fit into, especially for what's going on with the Pac-12. So. Okay, listen, far be it from me. That's what me and my friends used to say. Far be it from me to to judge and to see who gets to join the ACC or any other conference, right? So let's kick it off with 17 because there's a lot on this list. We're gonna get through it. 17. We're just going to say it right now, the Virginia Cavaliers. The Virginia will be 17, and that is dead last in my standings. I just think they had a tough time last year, a tough time and a tough outing. I think this year's going to be no different. As you add three more teams into the mix, including Stanford, including Cal, including SMU, I think it's going to be a little bit of rough for it's going to be just a little bit rough for Virginia. And this go round, Virginia last season, as we look up what happened last year in their last season for Cavalier football, Tony Elliott, it was okay at first, solid. It was okay at first. Started off hot. They ended up going 3-9, finishing 2-6 in the ACC. I feel like it's going to be a little bit tougher this year, especially with a lot of the teams that they have to play coming up in 2024. And when you look at the football schedule, they have two winnable games starting out. They got Richmond, Wake Forest. Those are those are toss ups. They got Maryland, Coastal Carolina, Boston College, Louisville, Clemson, North Carolina, Pitt, Notre Dame, SMU, Tech. That's going to be a tough schedule for Virginia. So I got Virginia right now at 17, especially with the way they finished last year. I believe in Tony Elliott. I think Tony Elliott, regardless of finishing last, should stay at Virginia. I believe in Tony Elliott. I think he can get it turned around, but he cannot keep having losing seasons like this. I think it's going to end up being rough outing this season, but I think Tony Elliott can do it. I think he's got it. So 17 is Virginia. 16 is our new member of the ACC, and this is their first season in the conference, the Cal Golden Bears. I think Cal will finish 16. Justin Wilcox moving from the Pac-12 to the ACC. Again, it's different style of football. It's a different style of football, a different brand of football, rather. And Justin Wilcox has got to understand that a little bit. And he will understand that a little bit. I think he understands it. I think he gets it. I think right now it's going to be a little bit of a tough outing just because of the move of the ACC and just moving in general. I think it's going to be tough. You got to get used to everything, and you have to get you just got to get used to everything, right? You just have to get used to a lot. So they got Fernando Mendoza back out of Miami, Florida, the redshirt sophomore. Mendoza is back. He is ready to rock and roll. He will most likely start for the Cal Golden Bears in this team. You got a lot of guys at DB, like redshirt senior Miles Williams, senior, excuse me I'm looking at the notes here, Lumaga Hearns the third. You got him at defensive back. You got Josiah Martin, wide receiver freshman, coming in for this team. You got Mason Starling at wide receiver, redshirt senior. You got a lot of talent on this team, but the scheduling is what can get you here for the Cal Gold Bears in the ACC. You got Auburn. First off, you got Berkeley to start off with, Auburn next. You got San Jose State, Florida State at Florida State. Then you got to play Miami next, at Pitt, against North Carolina State, then against Oregon State, then Wake Forest. It's just going to be a lot. You got SMU as well. It's going to be tough at first, I think. Could Cal pull off a surprise? Maybe they could pull off a surprise. But I think right now, as the things stand and with scheduling stands, then there's going to be a lot of teams out there that could get them, and a lot of them can outmatch currently right now, can outmatch Cal. So right now at number 16, we have Cal. And then I think they could move up. I think they could honestly move up if they can press. I think there's a lot of room of improvement there, but right now I got Cal currently Number 15, Stanford, the other new member of the ACC. Stanford, last year was a rough outing for them. They went 3-9 as well. It was kind of a rough, as well as Virginia, but rough outing for them in the Pac-12. 3-9, didn't do the best. They won a few games, and they won a few games. They hung in there with Washington. A lot of teams, were keeping an eye on that one. I was keeping an eye on that one. A lot of guys were. They almost had Washington. They were having them on the ropes. But right now, it's a different brand of football. Like I keep saying, it's a different brand of football. They got to get used to a lot of these teams. And the thing is, a lot of these teams, as in, like, they got to fly to come out to play these teams. They got to fly out to play these teams on weekends, on Saturdays. They got to get used to the weather. They got to get used to the climate. They got to get used to a lot of things. California weather is different from North Carolina weather. It's different from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania weather. It's different from Syracuse, New York. You know what I'm saying? Going from Palo Alto, California to Syracuse, New York, it's a lot different. So I think that's a big part in this. 15 is going to be Stanford. Regardless of their schedule, they got TCU to open up with at home. Cal Poly at their next game. They got to do back-to-back games. They got to go to Syracuse, New York. Different type of weather. They're luckily playing them on September, and which is going to be a little bit warmer in New York. Then they got to go to Clemson the next week. So they got back-to-back road trips: Syracuse, New York, and then Clemson, South Carolina. Then they got to play Virginia Tech. They got to play Notre Dame on the road. They got to play SMU, Wake Forest, NC State, Louisville, Cal, San Jose State. It's just a lot of the scheduling is a part. There's a lot of big games in there that they could lose, and I think that's going to be a tough thing right now for Stanford. I got them at 15 because of the scheduling. A lot of losable games in that one. I think they can improve, and I think they can get better, but right now, 15 for me is the Stanford Cardinal. When you look at 14, you got to think about who is good at 14 right now, and I think Wake Forest fits the bill right now in my standings. So number 14 is Wake Forest. I think Wake Forest has got a good team, and they got an up-and-coming roster, but a lot of people transferring in and out. I think right now, Wake Forest is a team that is good, but at the same time has a lot of games that they could probably drop. And I think that's why I have Wake Forest at 14. I got the Demon Deacons. I respect the Demon Deacons. I love what they do. They always play tough. They're always ready to rock and roll and ready to play. For anything. Every given Saturday, they try to play, and they try to leave it all out on the field. Right? So when you look at Wake Forest, as I'm pulling up their schedule right now, when you look at them, they have it's pretty tough. I mean, when you look at it, it's pretty tough. Right now, I just mentioned one. They have Stanford, they have Virginia, they have Ole Miss. Early on. That could be a potential loss there. Got NC State, Clemson. They have to play UConn. They have to play Cal, UNC, Duke, and Miami. A lot on their schedule they could drop. I think right now that Wake Forest is a really good football team. I respect Wake Forest. I love Dave Clawson. I think he's a solid head coach. I think Hank Bachmeier could be a really solid quarterback in the near future. I just think right now a lot of losable games on their schedule that could make them go to 14. So 14 right now for me is Wake Forest. 13 is Pittsburgh and Pitt, the Panthers, and Pat Narduzzi is up there as well. Number 13, Pitt and Pat Narduzzi. Pitt football. At one point, a few years back, was the truth. Won the ACC title game. Did Pat Narduzzi? They won it with Kenny Pickett, and it was a solid game. It was a solid game. It was them, and I think Wake Forest was in the ACC title game, and two teams that I just mentioned back to back. And now Pitt is 13. Wake Forest is 14. What happens with conference realignment and a lot of losses to your roster. Right now, Pitt's looking okay, but it's looking like a little bit more difficult up in the Panther territory. Right now they got Kent State. That's a winnable game there. They got to play Cincinnati. That's going to be a tough game. West Virginia is also going to be a tough game. Those two teams in the Big 12. Neil Brown had a reemergence, and I think West Virginia can be a solid team this year. That's going to be a tough game there. They got to play North Carolina, Cal, Syracuse, SMU, Virginia, and Clemson and Louisville, as well as Boston College. And Louisville and Clemson are games to keep an eye on. I think those are going to be two tough and could be losable games for Pitt. Right now, I got them at 13 only because of the scheduling and how tough this conference could be with a lot of teams up on their schedule for sure. So Pittsburgh and Pitt at 13. And I think that is where they could finish, and that's where most likely they will finish. Number 12, rather. I'm getting ahead of myself. Number 12, Boston College. Boston College did surprisingly well. Now I'm kind of curious to see what happens under new head coach Bill O'Brien. He was at the Pats as their OC. He's back in college as a head coach. Now he was a former Penn State head coach. Now he's back in the ACC as the Boston College Eagles head coach. Let's see what happens here with Boston College at 12. So we got Boston College at 12. And it's going to be a new era for them as well as it's a new era for everybody else. They finished 7-6 last year. Boston College did, and they had a surprising amount of upsets last year. They took Florida State to their limit, eventual ACC champion. Boston College's first game on their schedule is what I just mentioned on Labor Day. Is at Florida State. They have a shot at Florida State Monday, the Labor Day game, to prove in Tallahassee that they can go in there and surprise Mike Norvell and surprise the Seminoles with Bill O'Brien, as this is their first game. It's going to be tough. I think that's a losable game, but it could be tough. They have Disquents in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, in Boston College on the ACC network. You also have to go to the SEC network the next week at Missouri, and that's going to be a losable game there. You got to play Michigan State at home. Jonathan Smith now going there, and formerly from Oregon State, going there to try to turn that program around. We'll talk about them the next couple of weeks, in the next 2 weeks. Next week will be Big 12, and 2 weeks will be Big 10. So Virginia, they got West Virginia, you got Western Kentucky, Virginia Tech, Louisville, Syracuse, SMU, North Carolina, Pitt. Tough games, tough schedule, and a tough outing. Boston College has got some winnable games on that schedule and can win, but I think a lot of those games could be losable ones as well. I got Boston College at 12 because I think they're gonna shock a lot of people and pull off some wins that you don't expect. So I got them. I have Boston College at 12. I think they're going to pull off some surprise games, and it's one of those things you don't really see coming. So Boston College at 12. Number 11, Duke. I think Duke is at 11. I like Duke. I think Duke has lost a lot, unfortunately. I think they gain a solid head coach with Manny Diaz. They got Jonathan Potke at defensive coordinator. Duke has also, as we look up everything for Duke Blue Devils football, they got Manny Diaz. They have Jonathan Brewer as the offensive coordinator. They have Duke Potke as the defensive coordinator. Head coach Manny Diaz, they're ready to rock and roll. Malik Murphy comes into the fold after being at Texas as a backup. He is transferred into Duke. Malik Murphy will most likely be their starting quarterback. I think he's a sensational player. I think he's a difference maker, and this is why I put Duke at 11. I think they got some losable games on their schedule, but I think Malik Murphy can be that difference maker for Duke. So let's look at their schedule really quick, and then let's look at their schedule really quick, and let's move on, quickly, right? So they got Elon first game. That should be a win. I mean, automatically a win. You have Northwestern, which is going to be a tough game at Northwestern in Evanston, Illinois. Tough game there. And Northwestern doing a lot of good things, man. UConn, we'll talk about Northwestern in a couple of weeks. They got to play UConn, which could be a win. Middle Tennessee, which could be a win. North Carolina could be a loss. Those are some tough games there. North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Florida State, SMU, Miami, NC State. Brutal stretch. That's probably one of the most brutal stretches in the conference, I think. You have to play improving teams. The last year's ACC champion, a new up-and-coming team that just won the American Conference, and SMU got to play Miami, who's building up a total annihilation of a roster down there. Then you got to play an underrated NC State team, then play Virginia Tech, and then Wake Forest. Tough schedule there, tough outing. Let's see what Manny Diaz has got. I got them at 11 right now. He's a solid coach. You got a good quarterback in Malik Murphy. Let's see how they balance it out, and let's see how the offense rolls and how the defense rolls, and how physical they can be against a lot of these teams. I got them at 11 right now. There's a lot of tough games on that schedule, and a lot of games that I think they could probably lose during that tough stretch. Number 11 right now for me is Duke. Number 10, Syracuse. You're probably thinking right now, Syracuse is in your top 10? Yeah. I think Syracuse with Fran Brown is going to shock a lot of people. You bring in Kyle McCord at quarterback, a solid quarterback in Kyle McCord, who a lot of Ohio State fans kind of counted out and just dissed and got rid of. I think that Syracuse can be a solid football team this year. I think they could be an underrated team this year. Fran Brown was a defensive coach at Georgia, safeties coach at Georgia, and he's now going to bring that same energy and that fire that he brought at Georgia as the head coach for the Syracuse Orange. And Kyle McCord is a solid quarterback, going to the portal immediately and finding your guy. And Kyle McCord can be that dude for Syracuse. I think 10 is a good spot for them. I think starting off for Syracuse, they're a solid. They could be an underrated team, but I think there's a lot of teams on their schedule that they have some losable games on their schedule. They have to play Ohio first off the bat, Georgia Tech. They got to play Stanford. A few tough games. Holy Cross, easy one there. UNLV. They got to play NC State, Pitt, Virginia Tech, Boston College, Cal, UConn. They got Miami last. They got to play Miami on Thanksgiving weekend. Miami's going to be a tough one, and they got a lot of games that they could win. They got a lot of games that they could lose too. I got them at 10 because I think those are the games those tough games. I don't know if they have the depth and the overall roster. They're building their depth, but this season they don't have the depth like other teams do to contend at the top right now. So right now, I got Syracuse at 10 only because of the depth right now. But I think Syracuse is going to be a surprise team and may shock some teams. So Syracuse is at 10 for me. Number 9, Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech, I like them this season. I like them at 9, though. I don't think they're going to be at the top, but I think the middle of the pack is where I think that Virginia Tech could be. Virginia Tech's got a very underrated roster. I think they're gonna, like I said, gonna shock a lot of teams. I like them at 9. I think 9's a good spot for them. Brent Pry did his best last season. I think he's gonna try to get them rolling and get a lot of teams and get them rolling. I think they're going to be underrated this season. I think they got a lot of teams on their schedule that they can win. They got Vandy at first, and that could be a good one right there. They got Marshall at first. They got Vandy at first. As I pull up the schedule was just glitching out on me. Vanderbilt at first, Marshall then is next. Old Dominion, as always. They got to play Rutgers, Miami, and this is where the tough ones come in. Miami, they got to play Stanford, Boston College, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Clemson, Duke, and then Virginia at the end. They got a lot of tough games. And Miami and Clemson could be those difference makers there, and a lot of close games that a lot of things you don't expect, like Boston College on their schedule, who could give them a fight. So at 9, I got Virginia Tech. Brent Pry could do an amazing job there in his next season at Va Tech, but I think Va Tech at 9 is what's going to do it for me this season. I think they're going to be a team that's in the middle of the pack, but right now, I don't think, like Syracuse, have the depth to compete with a Miami right now at this time. So, for me, number 9, Va Tech. Number 8, North Carolina. I think North Carolina, it's a solid football team. I think they lost a good bit, though. I think they gained a good quarterback in Max Johnson from Texas A&M and LSU. Max Johnson could be a solid quarterback choice there for Matt Brown in this offense, to lead this offense. North Carolina has got a lot on their schedule, including NC State. Could be very underrated there. NC State could be. I think North Carolina has got a lot of potential. I think they're a middle of the pack team for me, only because a lot of talent has been lost, but they gained a good quarterback in Max Johnson. Let's see what North Carolina does. I got them at 8 right now, only because of their scheduling and only because of who they have and who they have in front of them. Number 8, North Carolina. That's just for me. North Carolina. SMU is at 7. I think SMU is ahead of it because they're returning a lot of their guys, and I think coming off of a American Conference, win. And getting there and getting to the ACC, they're looking for a challenge. I think they could be. I think they got the team to compete with a lot of these teams. I don't think they have the team to compete with a lot of the teams at the top of the conference. But SMU's got teams to compete with a North Carolina, a Stanford, a Cal, a Virginia Tech, a Virginia, Pitt, Wake Forest. They got a team to compete with a lot of these teams. I think SMU is going to shock a lot of people. I think their schedule is going to be a little bit tough. But when you look at everything going on with SMU, I think their schedule is going to be a little bit tough. But I think at 7 suffice for them. They could get a lot of wins under their belt in this conference. So 7 for me is at SMU. And I think it's going to be tough. I think some of their games are going to be tough, like Florida State and Louisville. TCU is going to be tough. BYU is going to be tough. And then after those tough games, it just gets a little bit easier for them. So at 7 is SMU. I think they can lose some of those games, but they finish at 7th in the conference as a learning curve. And then they build on till next season for the ACC. So 7 is SMU, the Mustangs. Hashtag pony up. Excuse me, pony up. Number 6, NC State. I like this. I think NC State's going to be a solid underrated team. Grayson McCall comes in as a graduate transfer. You got McCall. You got a lot of talent on this team for NC State. You have Dave Dorian, fantastic coach and an underrated coach for this team. I really like them a lot, I think they're a solid. There's a solid team. I really do. I think solid team. I think Sean Brown at linebacker is going to be a solid replacement for Peyton Wilson. They lost a lot there. I think Grayson McCall at quarterback is going to be solid as a graduate transfer. As I keep going, Noah Rogers, redshirt freshman, is going to be a solid wide receiver. But just got a lot of talent, man. Like a lot of talent. Tight end sophomore Just Vereen's going to be solid, and just a lot of guys on this team. Transfer tight end Justin Jolly, another fantastic player. I just think that they got some talent on this team, but the scheduling is what makes me put them at 6. They got Tennessee right. They got Western Carolina first, and they got Tennessee the next Saturday in Charlotte. So they got Tennessee, Louisiana Tech, Clemson, Northern Illinois, Wake Forest, Syracuse. It gets a little bit easier as the schedule goes on, but tough games against Clemson, Tennessee, Georgia Tech, and North Carolina could do it for me right there. And Syracuse as well. That's going to be tough. Very, very tough. Duke could give them a tough contest as well. I think North Carolina State at 6 is suffice for me. Got the talent, but I think a lot of those games, I think they could outmatch a little bit of that talent that NC State has. So 6 right now is NC State. Number 5, Louisville. I think Louisville's at 5. I think what they did last season was impressive as all get out. Made it to the ACC championship game. Jeff Brom, his first season there, made it to the ACC championship game. I think they take a little bit of a dip this coming up season in 2024, only because I think there's some teams out there that, Louisville's going to be solid. I'm not counting Louisville out. I just think right now they got some guys on their team, but I think there's some teams that they could go up against that could be a little bit better right now. Jacksonville State, Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, SMU. They got to play Miami. They got to play Boston College, Clemson. Tough schedule. Kentucky at the end of the year, as always. Tough scheduling and tough outing for Louisville. I think Jeff Brom's a solid coach, and he's gonna have that team ready to play. Louisville could be back in it. Who knows? But I think Louisville at 5 right now makes more sense to take a little bit of a dip because of a little bit of a tough, scheduling there. You're going to be surprised that I have them at 5. You're going to be even more surprised who I have at 4. I think 4 is Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech finishes ahead of Louisville. I think Georgia Tech has got a solid roster. I think that Brent Key's going to be getting them guys ready to play. Their schedule is going to be slightly tough, but I think they got the roster to handle it. I think I think the Yellow Jackets are going to be ready to play. I think Brent Key's going to have them ready to rock and roll. Let's look at their schedule. They got Florida State and Dublin. That's going to be tough. They have Georgia State next, Syracuse, VMI. I think they win those games. I think Louisville could be a winnable game. I think the roster is just solid. They got Eric Singleton, Haynes King, a lot of juice on offense, fantastic receiving room. They got a physical linebacker area. They got a physical defense. I think the linebackers got to improve a little bit, but like I said, in the spring outlooks and the spring results, but not too much. Their defense could be physical. I think they could be a solid team this season. And on their schedule, I mean, you got Duke, you got North Carolina, Notre Dame, Vatech. You still got to play Miami and NC State, and you got to play Georgia. Tough tail end of the schedule. That's why I have them at 4, but I think they're going to shock a lot of people and compete with a lot of teams. So Georgia Tech at 4 is suffice for me. Number 3, Florida State. You're going to think, wow, dude. Wow. Number 3, Florida State. I think number 3 is going to be, it's tough because I was bouncing around from Clemson and Florida State at 3. And last year, I know I said that Clemson was going to be in the ACC championship game, and I still believe that. But I think Florida State just shocked me really good last year. They got some guys on their team that are still good. They bring in DJ Uiagalelei from Oregon State / Clemson in the transfer portal. He can be a solid threat in the quarterback room. Mike Norvell has always got a solid defense. Their players are going to be really, really solid, and they have a lot of winnable games on their schedule. They really do. And I think, for me, they got some winnable games on their schedule that could prove otherwise. Clemson is still a toss-up game for Florida State. It could go either way. They got Georgia Tech on their schedule. They got Boston College on Labor Day. They got Memphis. They got Cal, SMU, Clemson, Duke. A showdown with Miami on October 26th, closer to Halloween. North Carolina, Notre Dame, Florida. And they got a lot of winnable games on their schedule. So I think Florida State can do it. Will they do it? I don't know. I think they drop a couple of games, and that's what brings me to 3 for Florida State. So 3, Florida State finishes at 3, right outside the ACC championship picture is Florida State, but they will be a very solid team this year regardless. So Florida State's at 3 for me. Clemson is at 2. I think Clemson is going to be a little bit more improved. They're going to be ready to face Florida State. They're going to be ready to face and overcome a lot of obstacles in this schedule. I think Dabo's going to have them ready to play. I think Cade Klubnik's development is key in this. I think Phil Moffitt's a solid running back. I think the offense is going to get that 1-2 punch is going to be solid, and it's going to be kind of hard to take down in the ACC. I think Clemson's at 2. I think Clemson finishes ahead of Florida State, and they make it to the ACC championship game. They win a lot of the games on their schedule. And number 1, you already know. Let's just throw it up. It's the U. If you're seeing me on YouTube, you're watching it, the U. The U is number 1. And I think right now, the U is number 1. I think because of what Cristobal is doing down there, I think what the coaching is good down there. I think what they got on offense and defense is quite incredible. They have Damian Martinez coming in from Oregon State, Cam Ward projected to be their starting quarterback. I think from Washington State. I think they have a solid roster on offense, the potential to have an explosive offense under their belt. I think right now, as I'm getting messages from a lot of news coming in right now, but I think that Miami, number 1, Clemson, number 2. I think Miami's got the roster. I think they got the defensive roster. I think they're going to be physical on the defensive line. I think their offense is going to be explosive. They have a killer receiving room in Miami. And if we look at everything, let's look at the roster really quick before we conclude today's episode of Pigskin Frenzy and talk about the ACC title game. They have Cam Ward. They have Jacoby George at wide receiver. They have a lot of guys. They have a lot of guys that they're receiving. They have Xavier Restrepo at wide receiver, a fifth-year senior. They have Damian Martinez at running back. It's just a lot of guys that they got, man. A lot of guys. And it's really one of those things where they got a lot of offensive power, a lot of defensive power. They're building up, and they're ready to they're ready to rock and roll. They're ready to rock and roll. And I think Miami's got a roster through the portal. They did really, really well. Clemson is going to have to try to counter that. And I think those are the two teams that make it in the ACC championship game. Sorry for stuttering and diving. I'm just trying to I was just fending off reports on my cell phone and on my notes here, but Miami's got the roster, and I think that's why I put them at number one. They have developed a big-time roster. I think they have an explosive offense coming our way, and a lot of teams are going to be shocked by what they're going to get from Miami this season. So I think Miami finishes at 1 for the first time in years in the ACC championship game. They make it to the ACC championship game against Clemson. Who do I have winning the conference? Miami versus Clemson. Who do I have winning the ACC championship game and going and getting grabbing one of those 4 spots, those bye week spots in the college football playoff? ACC champion, Miami over Clemson. I got Miami over Clemson. Can Clemson make it to the playoffs? Sure they can, but they grab one of those at-large spots. I think Miami beats Clemson, and they defeat them probably by a score projection of 31-17. I think Miami beats them 31-17. Yes, as I look on the schedule for Miami does, as far as I know, no, they don't play. I thought they did. They don't play Clemson at all. They play Clemson in the ACC championship game, win 31-17, and go to the college football playoff with an explosive offense, and they end up winning a lot of games. I think Miami does it, wins the ACC championship, 31-17. I got Miami winning it and winning the ACC championship in 2024. Miami, the U. Are they back? They could be. They very well could be. The U at number 1 over Clemson in the ACC championship game. That was my 2024 conference standing projections for the ACC. Let me guys know what you think on this episode. I'm going to post the conference standing projections tomorrow, which is Wednesday, on Facebook and X. Let me guys know what you think. I might post it on Instagram as well. Go check it out. And that is all the time we got for Pigskin Frenzy. Again, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, all you have to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X, Instagram, and Facebook, just type in Pigskin Frenzy. Follow, like the pages there. You're gonna get episode updates. You're gonna get news and highlights from across college and NFL football. You're going to get trivia questions on Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football trivia question, as well as all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, check out the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com, for all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Big thank you to our partners at the Beard Club. Big thank you to them for making everything possible with our partnership at Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, we'll be back Thursday for another NFL edition of Pigskin Frenzy. Latest on OTA reports, latest on the latest updates on contracts and holdouts, and we're going to discuss what's all going down in the NFL on Thursday. Next Tuesday, we continue with our conference standing projections, and we talk about the Big 12. The Big 12, our Big 12 conference standing projections with 16 teams in that one. That's next Tuesday. We will see you Thursday for an NFL edition of Pigskin Frenzy. I'm Joel Norris signing off. Again, see you Thursday for an NFL edition of Pigskin Frenzy. For everybody out there, please and always stay the course.